evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which giant, faceless, soulless corporations dictate to the rest of us how we should behave and think of ourselves. Ain't it grand? And I come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Temperamental Thursday. Yes, we return once again to the off-brand world. The off-brand world? How about the world of off-brand TED Talks? Except that this is a TED Talk, so maybe it is the off-brand world. Anyway, yes, this is an actual TED Talk tonight. Oh boy, cream of the crop, top of the heap, a number one. At least that's what they tell me. I guess we'll find out together. It's also going to be a relatively long presentation, so I better get through this introduction quickly so we save as much time as possible. And given that fact, who's joining me on this beautiful Thursday evening? Zed the Snarky, good evening. Shell D, good evening. Random American, good evening to you. Noah Sencio, hello. Kiro Soldier, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Zan Wild, hello. Draco Rincewind, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. Lady Stefano, good evening. C. Thomas, good evening. Newells 2, good evening. Keldrig, good evening to you. Emperor W.R. Costin, good evening. Ost Sand, good evening. Let's see. Attack Alpaca, good evening to you. Toku 154. Car 54, where are you? I'm not that old. I just, used to watch Nick at Night. Anyway, Dina B, good evening to you. And anybody else who pops in the meantime, I hope to grab you before I start. But either way, those of you who are lurking, those of you in the future, good evening. All right, so tonight we have an interview, a two-person. It's actually not a one-person show on a TED stage. It is a conversation between a lady and another lady. And one of those ladies is apparently the Chief Diversity Officer of Google. Now, if I am not mistaken, we have heard from this lady before on this channel because in the last several months, I've done a couple of streams regarding Google talking about their diversity, equity, and inclusion theories for themselves. And here's the interesting bit. In each instance that I've looked at Google in the last several months, they have, in one way or another, been trying to redefine DEI. And I've had some suspicions as to why. And of course, this is all just tinfoil hat, conspiracy theory, whatever. But after the affirmative action decision last spring, which basically said that the 14th Amendment combined with the Title VI from the Civil Rights Act of 1962, more or less, well, not more or less, it says that, giving preferences to people on the basis of their skin color for opportunities in education is unconstitutional. It violates the Constitution and federal law. So affirmative action goes by the wayside. The problem for DEI is that it operates on almost the exact same foundation, save for, in most cases for private companies, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And along with the 14th Amendment, DEI really has no legal basis to stand on when companies determine how they're going to hire people on the basis of quotas. That's really the one thing they can't get around. If they have declared themselves a DEI initiative company and determined how they're going to hire people on the basis of what they look like or who they sleep with in some instances, then they're tempting fate. And they have been tempting fate the entire time. And so companies have basically three choices after the affirmative action decision. Either they can stop their DEI initiatives entirely and just toss them out, which is almost a tacit admission they've been doing something wrong the entire time. They can try to slowly phase it out, or in the case of what I'll be talking about in a second, change the narrative of what they're doing to try to avoid any future conflicts. Or they can double down and just say, no, we're doing the virtuous right thing and we're not going to apologize for it ever. It appears to me, I could be mistaken, but after the last couple of times we've seen the diversity, equity, and inclusion representatives from Google on public stages and public forums talking about their initiatives, they've been trying to redefine the message. In the first instance, on a previous stream, they talked about DEI 2.0 mentioning something called targeted universalism, like literally adding a new version to it or something. So, don't know about that. And then in the second instance, which was just a couple of months ago, I think, I looked at a Google presentation again, but this time a panel discussion amongst a whole bunch of Google employees. And again, they started talking about DEI in terms of ideas and thoughts, more so than aesthetics, although they inevitably fell back into making aesthetics important, especially when it came to what vendors or companies they would either work with or help assist during the course of the pandemic in particular. So, is Google trying to shift the image, reframe the terms around their initiatives because of, again, this is my theory, the changing winds on the legality of DEI? I guess we'll see if this is a third example tonight as we hear from our Chief Diversity Officer of Google about creating a culture of belonging. And how do you create a culture of belonging when the entire DEI apparatus is set up around discrimination? I don't know. I guess we'll hear and we'll find out. But before I get to that, a couple more things. First, Keeverdam, thank you so much. No more posting Angry's GoFundMe. Okay, so I only have so many characters I can fill a message with, and I have several different fundraisers for different people. And so I had to make at least a sacrifice tonight regarding Angry Illinoisians GoFundMe in order to add Angela Arriaga's GoFundMe. So before I forget, at the top of the chat box, take a look at the pinned comment there. Those are the GoFundMes for our friends from the channel, audience members for a long time, people that we've all come to care about. So first off, we have Moonshock. Moonshock has recently been, unfortunately, diagnosed with cancer for a third time. Fighting it, needs some help. Please take a look at that one. James Colley needs some assistance with some life stuff. Please take a look at that. I won't go too deeply into it. Grisella, unfortunately, has been trying to raise money to cover the costs of his girlfriend passing away. So please take a look at that one. And lastly, Angela Arriaga is facing a almost total life shift and is looking for some assistance in making that happen. So if you take a look at that one, please, as well. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine, but please share those out on social media if you're able to. So thank you. And so apologies to Angry Illinoisian, at least for this week. I'll try to get it back in there next week, but there's only, Google only allows so many characters in a message, and I was running out of space. So apologies for that. Also, holy cats, Brett Ide, Stoka, I don't know what to say, as usual, with most people's generosity, but certainly in the face of such generosity in this case. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. In fact, I'm so bowled over. There's somebody else that wants to express their amazement by the...
Wowee, wow.
That's right. Dogcat Fox is very excited. No, I'm being facetious. Brett, really, thank you. That's incredibly generous. I appreciate it. I hope I earn such generosity through whatever it is that I do. Thank you so much. And also, Keeverdam again, I'll still post them if you like. I appreciate. I just had the initiative to do it tonight myself and make sure that Angela's was in there. You can post them. You can change them up if you want. That's true too. I mean, I want to make sure that everybody gets some coverage at some times. But people that have asked or posted things recently, I'd like to get them into the mix as much as possible and get them out there. So thank you, Keeverdam, again, both for your consistent help in posting the GoFundMes and for your generosity as well with the donation. Thank you. Okay, so before I get too lost into things, a few more hellos and then we will begin. Oh, but Alan Thyler, good gravy. Thank you, Alan, so much for your generosity, as always, with the Samurai #1 Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow.
There's a Ranting Monkey Dogcat Fox. And speaking of Ranting Monkey, thank you again, Alan. I'll have a programming note about Ranting Monkey, hopefully. Will be true by the end of the show. All right, so a few more hellos here, and then we will get into it. Who did I miss? I thought I missed somebody. I'm pretty sure that it. Wild-Eyed Wanderer, good evening. Who else is here? Tyr Alexander, the Gentleman Lich, good evening. Shadowclaw, Good evening. C Monkey. Good evening. Somehow I never subscribed. Well, maybe you did and YouTube unsubscribed you. They sometimes do that. But if you haven't, by all means, appreciate it. A guy in his room, good evening, has interviewed me on several occasions now. And Yvonne Solomon, good evening. Woo, I'm on time for once. You're always on time. You always arrive exactly when you need to. A wizard is never late. A wizard arrives exactly when he needs to, right? All right, with that, let's get into it. This one clocks in at just under 20 minutes, so let's get going. Tonight's bingo card is bingo card A. A as in Google Plus. That was the winner of the poll on Twitter, X, to decide which was the biggest Google failure product of all time out of the three that I put up there, Google Plus. So get your bingo cards ready. Links are in the description. All right, start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
Melanie, I'm so honored to be sitting and sharing the stage with you.
I'm so honored that you're so honored to be sharing the stage with her. You guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat below. And actually, I'll take the initiative right now, speaking of initiative, to prepare a Discord link before I forget by the time the show is practically over, so that I'm not scrambling at the last second to get a Discord link ready. If you'd like to join the Discord, you'll just have to wait till the end of the show until you hear the secret word, which I don't know what it is yet, because it'll probably come out of the presentation. All right. I hear it like it's a fungus culturing in my ears unbelongingly. Well, I can't get much more of a better endorsement than that.
I couldn't wait for today to have our conversation joined with all these lovely women.
How inclusive and belonging of you. Is the entire audience made of women? I can't tell. If there's a guy in there, should he leave?
There's so much to cover.
Yes.
To be at this experience, to be celebrating the power, the voice, the ideas of women
is inherently sexist.
There's also some really grappling and gripping conversations that we have to have.
Yes, about?
Particularly around diversity.
Yes. And this is a forewarning. I am not as paranoid as I might have been last week about doing the pause game for the sake of the YouTube gods, but I still have to very frequently make sure, like I said, I wish YouTube would give us, like, you can only play up to this much time of something before you have to pause, but they don't tell us that, so I have to go on these sort of like mental increments of like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Yeah, so apologies ahead of time.
This idea of equity as well as inclusion. And your work, even beyond your title, has been extremely massive.
She's Chief Diversity Officer, correct?
But we also have to look at what the last few years has entailed.
Okay.
And
are we going to talk about George Floyd?
What commitments have been made from corporate entities?
Oh, yes. The unfulfilled promises of corporate entities. After the advent of George Floyd's death, all the corporations flocked to push their ESG and DEI initiatives and everything else, and they made great promises about billions of dollars worth of investment into specific initiatives and or businesses based on skin color mostly. And some of those companies have not fulfilled those promises, probably because they'd be sued or otherwise for racial discrimination in most cases. But people are still complaining about all the money they're not getting for nothing.
And so I want to dive in today with you this morning about where we sort of were and where we're going.
Okay.
But maybe let's start with this commitment, particularly that Google made right out of the gate.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that. What commitment did Google make, and have they fulfilled that commitment? Oh, I guess we'll find out. Thank you, Angelverse, for the lemon preaching to little lime. That's as best as I can tell from what I see there. A lemon and a lime in conversation. Is that what that's supposed to represent? The two of them in conversation? Two citruses from other mistresses in conversation? That's what I call Dave's lemonade, my citrus from another mistress. I know I'm stupid. Also, good evening, as I see in the chat. Roan Harushan, Rotten Corpse, Mike R, And did I miss anybody else? I probably did. A Resolute Germ. Good evening.
Particularly when we think about 2020, the murder of George Floyd.
You know, at this point, I should put George Floyd on the bingo card, shouldn't I?
And the sort of subsequent reckonings that our country, that the world has had.
Sure.
And what that's meant for your team, for your organization at large.
Yeah.
And how we're starting to think a little bit differently about the shifts that are now happening.
Yes. Tell us about how the death of a man in police custody has anything to do with either Google or diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been wondering that since 2020. What are you talking about? It couldn't be that you're just using the advent of that guy's death to justify a whole bunch of ridiculous. Am I going Sean Connery, or is it my Invisalign? This is my last set. Fingers crossed, knock Formica. This is my last set of Invisalign. It's still painful because I'm on my last set. It's screwing up my speech. Anyway, you know what I was talking about.
So it's a great question. And even before we get to like the horrific murder of George Floyd, you know, I think we need to step back a little bit further. And
because DEI was going strong before George Floyd. I've been doing this channel for over 7 years now.
Think about COVID and the comorbidities that were exacerbated. You know, we thought about who was killed by COVID.
People were, both directly and indirectly, as a result of the initiatives and declarations made during the course of it. But you tell me, whose lives were more important?
And I think that brought a spotlight that exacerbated when we started to look at police brutality.
No. It didn't exacerbate anything. You guys used the advent of both George Floyd and COVID to push your initiatives and your ideology. It didn't reveal anything. You just stood on the backs of either dead or sick people to shout from the rooftops about your virtuous initiatives. It is so cynical and insidious when they do this. Advocates for DEI saying, oh, well, you know, because of George Floyd and because of the pandemic, we really needed to focus on. No, those are just the lamest excuses.
And, you know, before George Floyd, there was Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and this wasn't like
And none of those instances had anything to do with DEI, did they?
Episodic event. It really led to a global racial equity movement.
Yeah, unjustifiably so, but go on.
And I think global here is important. So I have 4 generations in my household. My mom's.
Whoa! What's this? Midnight's Edge After Dark is on a raid. What? I'm having a raid? I never have raids. What? I mean, I don't even have cockroaches, so I never really need raid, but I have a raid? Oh my gosh. And as I have been previously gifted a wrench over a Midnight's Edge After Dark, well, I think that I have to return the favor in kind. Holy cats! 32 flavors of Nick Weiser. And where did the Midnight's Edge After Dark? Oh my gosh. I'm all nervous now. I'm all self-conscious. Well, what am I going to do? I got celebrities in the audience. Okay. Oh, I hope I do well.
85, the youngest in my household. I'm a new Gigi to a granddaughter, Noelle.
Amazing.
And my mom said, who marched in the 1960s with Dr. Martin Luther King. Both of my parents did.
Oh, your mom marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Really? I wonder what he would be thinking about the whole DEI initiative these days, given the core premise of diversity.
She said, I can't believe that people outside of the United States care about police brutality towards Black Americans. I mean, she was stunned.
Was she? Because there are no progressive elements around the world connected to each other at all about anything at any time. I don't know if your mother had been paying attention to, I don't know, a little thing called Antifa, been operating for years prior to George Floyd, just waiting for another excuse to throw a riot. I mean, a protest. Also, I just saw in the chat, pardon me, Sagacious Six is here. Hey, Six, how's it going? Thank you for dropping in. All right. Oh, and also Mars Monkey Max. Good evening to you. Anybody else I missed? Oh, Psycho Magnus or Magus. Pardon me, Magus. I don't want to get that wrong. All right.
By this. And so I think that backdrop is important. So what we did at Google, like quickly recognizing, hey, this isn't a series of episodic events. This is a movement. And we need to immediately deepen the work.
Why? I mean, obviously, because Google's an activist company. So we saw an opportunity, right? And your motivation to do so was entirely benevolent? There wasn't anything else going on there? Okay. I'm still waiting to hear, because I don't know off the top of my head, what promises of money, funds, resources, opportunities, and so on did Google make at the time of George Floyd's death during the racial reckoning of 2020? And have they fulfilled them? Is all of this just pillow talk to make excuses for Google not actually doing what they said they would, or
that we're doing? So we went on a 100-day sprint as a company, like not just my team, which is a very representative team.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Representative of what? Talented individuals? Or
a rock star team that enables everything that I do. But this was a company. So we did a call to action globally across Google. And our goal was to really ensure that we were building sustainable equity.
How? By what mechanism, pardon me, were you building sustainable equality of outcome?
Internally and externally. And so we had teams that looked at all of our products and how do we use our products for social good.
Well, if I recall correctly, the last presentation I looked at, one of the people on the panel said that an unnamed Google product, this is the thing that frustrated me the last time, an unnamed Google product during the course of the pandemic, apparently prevented a relative of hers or a relative of a friend or something who had been a released convicted felon from returning to a life of crime. I'm not kidding. If you go back, I'll put the link in the description if I remember to. In the previous Google panel discussion, one of them said that some Google product prevented recidivism of a convicted felon. I obviously that is true, and I'm really hoping to this day that I could ever find out what product that was that cures someone of the criminal impulse. But anyway, just as an example of Google's good work,
which is embedded in the mission of Google to ensure that our products are helpful and accessible. And then internally looking at, we used our Black leadership, our Black executives, and our...
I'm sure you used them. I have no doubt that you use them. By the way, let's go over the bingo card real quick to remind ourselves what we're listening for. And I think I have a couple of squares to circle. Bingo card links are in the description. We are on bingo card A for alphabet. Sure. All right. First off, collectivizes own demographic. She hasn't done it so yet. I'm going to wait and see. Systemic or institutional? Not specifically. We'll wait on that. Sales pitch for product or service? I think that's inherent. We're talking about Google. Childhood or family anecdote? Not as of yet. Diversity, equity, or inclusion? Yes, that has been mentioned. Plays victim? Not yet. Microaggressions or unconscious bias? No. Privilege? Not specifically. Contradicts own point or argument? Not sure what the point is yet. Patriarchy? No. Weightless example? We'll see. Economic disparity? I'm sure we'll get there if we're talking about Google financial efforts on behalf of diversity. Feminism? Not yet. Marginalized or marginalization? We'll probably get there. A list? Has to be a formal list? Not yet. White supremacy? It's implied, but we'll see. Word salad? Not yet. Self-vilification or wretchedness? I'd be surprised, but you never know. Argumentative non sequitur? That's always a fancy one. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase? Not yet. Mind reading or assumes motives? Not clearly yet. Benevolent condescension? We'll probably get there. Anecdote that probably never happened? Haven't gotten any yet. And lastly, leaves out vital context. Not clear yet. So far on the board, we have sales pitch for product or service, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and free space because it's free.
Our Black Googler now.
Oh, wait, Advocates Diablo, you're right. Her parents marching with King. That's correct. I totally spaced me. Yep, you got it. Childhood or family anecdote, circling that one. Sorry about that. All right, let me back up a couple seconds because I cut her off.
we used our Black leadership, our Black executives, and our Black Googler network, which is our employee resource group.
ERG's my favorite.
To look at what do we need to do internally to build equity, and not just across the Black community, but across underrepresented minority. So we
marginalized marginalization. It's 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other. Circle in that one. Okay, so not just, but, then why just go to your Black ERG? But why not bring everybody in as a form of, inclusion and belonging? But you specified your Black Googlers network. Why be so exclusive if it's about everybody?
We look at Black, Latinx, Hispanic population, as well as indigenous community.
No Asians in there anywhere? Okay, so Latinx. I love Latinx. Latinx. Latinx men? How about some Latinx men? Janetti Hell says, everybody you mean? Probably. Oh, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Thank you so much for the happy, smiley, lovely Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
Oh, it's a Keever Dam Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Appreciate that. Nice to see you. All right.
Out of that, we had 8 commitments, 4 external, 4 internal. We've invested over $500 million in the racial equity commitments.
And how? In what way? What did you do with $500 million? Specifics, please.
They complete in 2025. So we've learned a lot along the way.
Okay, so $100 million per year since 2020 to create equity initiatives by doing what with that money?
And we do this work as a collective with civil rights organizations, human rights organizations.
So you're just making donations to charities? Is that it?
Other organizations.
You can't name some? Who are the recipients of this $500 million bonanza?
Because you can't do this work in isolation.
You're not. You're a giant global monopoly.
This work, we have to go together.
What?
What's been really, first of all, that's really fascinating.
You're right. Fascinating is a good word for it. It's very non-committal. What is she talking about?
And thank you for really spelling that out for us.
No, she didn't spell out anything. From the company named Alphabet, she spelled out nothing. What's
really interesting is there is almost this new identity around what discrimination, what marginalization, and even racism, if we can just call it by the term that it is.
I guess it depends on what we're talking about, because you are saying that we're redefining words now.
Has inflicted on various groups.
Demographics, not groups.
And it is sometimes a challenge to think that it took a series of very catastrophic events, including a tremendous public health crisis.
It didn't. DEI was in full effect for years prior to the pandemic. The pandemic was used as a tool by which to justify more of it.
To get to a place where our ears were open.
Oh,
right.
God.
And even when I think about the nature of the partnerships that you all have had.
Could you name a few?
Particularly when it comes to HBCUs.
Oh, historically Black colleges and universities. Oh, I thought we were wasn't this talk supposed to be about belonging? And you mentioned inclusion earlier. You have a real exclusionary focus in this one.
Which you are an alum.
Proud Hampton University.
Any HBCUs? I heard there's some HBCU students.
Oh, hear that enthusiasm.
I love all HBCUs, but
do you? I wonder what the common thread that makes you such a fan of them are.
Particular to
so I'm not part of the club because I did not attend HBCU, but I hope one day to be an honorary member of Spelman. I should have been a Spelman woman.
Why didn't you attend an HBCU?
All right, I see. Okay.
I'm sure Dr. Gale is beaming right now.
All I need
is to have you.
I just need a sweatshirt. So meet me after. But there's some unique partnerships that are expanding beyond just social justice initiatives. And
oh, would you like to regale us with the list? I have a square just for that.
Even stepping into an area of education.
Yeah. Social justice and education. What's that? I have a playlist about the whole thing, Curriculum of Fear, on my channel. Go check it out.
And very unique partnerships, particularly around the future of work, which when we think about inequalities, when we talk about the racial wealth gap, when we talk about who gets to build the future, who gets to imagine a future.
Oh, racial wealth gap. That sounds like economic disparity, circling that one on the board. And I'm also going to circle a list because she's going down all of the things we have to keep in mind. So circling a list, let me back up a couple seconds because I cut her off.
The racial wealth gap, when we talk about who gets to build the future, who gets to imagine a future, a lot of times when we think about the folks who are left out, that is women, that is other marginalized folks of color.
You're sitting across from the Chief Diversity Officer of Google. I'm sorry, who's left out again?
Who don't necessarily get access in the same way that some of our counterparts do.
The Chief Diversity Officer of Google is sitting across from you.
And there's a particular emphasis on unique partnerships in order to create, upskill, reskill, or even teach particular skill sets that are going to be found in the future. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
I'm circling word salad. None of that meant anything about anything. That's just non-specific gobbledygook was all that was.
Yes. And so it's an incredible observation and an insight.
Is it? What was?
Let's start with our historically Black colleges and
why not?
Universities, which are national treasures.
Oh, really? Is Nicolas Cage chasing them down?
And we have to surround our HBCUs and ensure that we continue the pipeline. And part of that...
Why not turn HBCUs into just CUs? I mean, why have a focus on race? Aren't we supposed to be doing away with that? You want to talk about belonging and inclusion? Why celebrate what is effectively segregation and exclusivity, or racial centrism in education? I thought I had a notion that there was a whole bunch of things that happened that your own parents participated in that was meant to sort of move us away from that kind of thinking. But maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
Yes, is investing in the pipeline for development to make sure that we're hiring. But there's a bigger part to this picture. And so
the bigger part of yours focusing on places where the demographics you're looking for are more centrally collected so that the odds that anybody that you're going to recruit for is going to fit your aesthetic desire in hiring. That, you want to talk about that or anything else?
So at Google, I lead an HBCU President's Council.
But any other college doesn't count? Okay.
One of the things we're doing, in addition to creating opportunities for internships and hiring, is we are helping to amplify research opportunities. And so I'm not sure if you know this, Sherelle, but...
I'm not sure if you know this. Many people don't know this about me, but I'm Michael Caine. Most people don't know that. That was a horrible Michael Caine impression, but I got to fill the air with something.
Out of the HBCU landscape, there are no HBCUs currently that are at R1 research standing. And that
R1 research standing. I assume that's like, grade A beef or something.
That means that we have a stewardship responsibility to ensure that we're providing research opportunities, but research opportunities also they don't just provide development, they also provide diverse voices.
Research opportunities based on what? What filters are there for research opportunity? Is it merit? Is it scholarship? Is it passion and effort and a proven track record of an interest in a particular field? Or is there some other element that is a consideration in there that kind of got judicialized out of existence last spring in the affirmative action decision?
Diverse ideas, diverse thoughts into cutting edge research.
Oh, diverse thoughts. Oh, now we're back to the previous Google presentation where they focused on diversity of thought, diversity of skill. Of course, if they are trying to lessen the impact, because that was another word they liked a lot, of race on the whole process. They've already thrown that out the window with their previous comments tonight. But okay. Thought, huh? Quality of thinking. All right.
We just launched an applied research institute a couple of weeks ago in partnership with UNCF and TMCF.
I don't know what those initials stand for.
Focused on HBCUs
Of course you did.
with mathematical and computational research
Well, I was told that math is racist.
provide these hands-on opportunities. And with Spelman College, through google.org, we provided a $5 million grant for a women of color STEAM database. This is
A women of color STEAM database. Now, I'm assuming we're not talking about a big Excel sheet of games you can buy for cheap through Valve. So we're talking about science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. I think they added art at some point. Okay, so you have a $5 million investment for peoples based on their race and their gender. In education, mind you. Okay, and a specific race and the female gender. Okay. Tell me about diversity again. What does diversity mean to you? I'm getting mixed signals here. Mixed signals, diversity. That's pretty good.
no one else is doing this.
No one. Wait. What do you mean no one else is doing this? We've just had stories about law firms and other institutions having to roll back their racially focused, gender focused scholarship programs because of possible impending litigation for racist practices. So, I mean, maybe you're the last one doing it. Maybe you don't care so much because you got a legal team that can go on forever with unlimited resources, but you're not the only ones, unless you're talking about this specific discipline or field, I suppose. But you're not the only ones doing race-specific scholarships or financial opportunities.
STEAM database. No one else is doing this. And so Google developers, other HBCUs are partnering hand in hand with Spelman to create this database.
A very, very exclusionary database.
And this is the type of opportunity that we have to continue to provide.
Wait. What's this database going to do? Sorry, I know I got to keep interrupting otherwise, but still, you're going to create a database for women of STEAM database for women. To what end? What is the utility of this database? What is it going to do for anybody? And $5 million is like a rounding error on a day's wages for a Google executive. So, okay.
And just, one other example, at Howard University, we have a partnership that we just announced. It's called Project Elevate Black Voices. So,
well, if there was any ambiguity to your intent, I think that's gone out the window. All right. So, and what is that going to do? How much money did you invest in that?
How many of you are familiar with automatic speech technology? And I don't know about you. Sometimes I use it and it doesn't recognize my voice.
Why? Because the software is racist?
Right.
And so Google's research, as well as external research, has determined and validated.
Determined and validated. Oh, okay.
That it doesn't universally recognize all voices.
Oh, really? Is that because in most cases, voices are, after a fashion, a bit unique to each individual? Okay. I mean, if you do not enunciate, if you don't clearly speak in a way that the software can understand individual words or concepts, then you might have a problem. But this is based on not someone's, enunciation, pronunciation, or anything else. Maybe they have a speech impediment. I don't know. But it's obviously racist, right? Because you're talking about uplifting skin color voices, whatever it is. Okay, so the software is racist. Google's software is racist?
So Howard University holds the licensing rights, but they are doing that research to improve the technology. Improve
the technology. Okay, what does that have to do with race?
These are the types of opportunities and unique partnerships that we have to not only build the pipeline, but to ensure that we have diversity in the design, in the products, and in the services.
There's no diversity in filtering out participants or case studies on the basis of race. Contradicts own point or argument, circling that one on the board right there. And I'm also going to circle argumentative non sequitur. Everything she just described doesn't further anything about what she says it does. I mean, if you get a whole bunch of people talking, they're all going to have different voices. It's got nothing to do with race, and it doesn't actually prove anything about improving the racial reckoning. If all of this is meant to somehow act as a salve to the wound of the racial reckoning of 2020, I've yet to hear how that's supposed to work. I'm not hearing it.
That's super incredible.
Super incredible. That goes in front of the X-Men.
Particularly for students who are currently at these institutions.
Yes, the students who are at these institutions, as long as they have the particular element that is elevated to importance.
And are going to get access and opportunity, I think also to Google executives and employees as well, who provide mentorship and leadership as well amongst these particular programs.
Through any particular Googlers network you'd like to mention, since you're very, very racially centrist here.
And you talked about the partnerships with the United Negro College Fund.
She did? Oh, that's right. She said UNCF. Okay, I didn't have in the top of my mind what those stood for. Okay. The
Thurgood Marshall Foundation.
I wonder what connective tissue runs through these organizations.
And oddly enough, in 2020, and I always want to go back to that date because there was some really
2020 is not a date, it's a year.
Interesting realities. People for the first time were learning about all of these organizations that were supporting and have been doing work for decades.
Yes, many organizations took advantage of a racial reckoning to promote themselves for their own ends and fundraising. It's true. Like Ibram X. Kendi got a $10 million grant to his anti-racism research center out of Boston University, I think it was, from Jack Dorsey of Twitter. No strings attached, $10 million within a month or so after George Floyd's death. Yeah, a lot of these doing work for years, and suddenly, it's money's coming in.
Yes. So for a lot of folks, it was kind of a firsthand discovery.
No, it was an advertising opportunity from a bunch of race-based organizations.
So when I think about this area of DE&I and sort of 2020 to 2021, we saw sort of the largest growth of chief diversity officers being named for the first time.
Yeah, gosh, it was amazing, wasn't it?
In corporate spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We saw this kind of deluge of focus on things like a 15% pledge.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Well, first off, naming chief diversity officers was not a revelation of 2020, 2021. I have dozens of videos with chief diversity officers of companies preceding all of that. Now, I hate to toot my own horn, but I've been looking at this stuff for a while. Secondly, let's talk about a dedication to a percentile. Let's talk about percentile promises.
Across retail, or representation on stages, or even within authorship in books.
Yes, let's talk about racial discrimination in the corporate realm, especially around percentiles. Would you like to go and did Google have any percentile goals stated publicly about any racial demographics they were going to give preference to in hiring or promotion practices, or perhaps even in those entities you decided to work with as vendors or suppliers?
And then we hit 2022. And we saw this sort of decline economically, of course, housing to inflation to all of these things that started to take precedence.
Yeah, the bottom line and the shareholders, and seeing that DEI initiatives and the money spent on them were bringing back no returns on investment.
Which also meant the pullback of all of those big promises, those hyper focuses. And the shift was very palpable for.
Yeah, it's almost like it was all done in the name of virtue and PR, wasn't it?
For so many of us.
Yeah.
And we kind of knew that it was going to come.
Okay, so what's your point then?
We knew that the focus and the language and almost the hysteria around how do we elevate marginalized voices might take a turn. So we sort of had to think about, okay, if we're going to have this spotlight for like 12 to 18 months, like
we really need another body. If we're going to get this spotlight for now, we need another human sacrifice. Oh, sorry. No, wait, what?
How do we like rush out and get it done?
Yeah, how do we take advantage of this hysteria, this racial hysteria to make a buck?
What's fascinating is you talk about these pillars, these 8 pillars, and these goals that are going to be accomplished by 2025.
Okay. Yeah, we still haven't heard the list of these goals, specific goals by 2025.
Which is absolutely fascinating.
Fascinating is a good word for it, yeah.
And so I want to get an understanding of why has this work stayed the course? And where are we going? Because
is this just a public opportunity for Google to, I don't know, head off criticism because of their, I'm guessing, either inability or decision to pull back or whatever to fulfill these promises, being one of the, if not the richest corporation on the planet? Is that what this is? It's kind of a preemptive apology tour?
I hear of these amazing initiatives and opportunities. I hear of the dedication. You're one of the few remaining chief diversity officers, unfortunately.
And why is that? I mean, have you asked the question on the reverse end of it, instead of like making it some sort of like, oh, everybody's doing something wrong? Have you asked if there's any pragmatic reason why chief diversity officers were let go or reduced in stature over the last year or so? Did anything happen last year in the spring of 2023 that might have like changed the calculus on DEI? And prior to that, is there any reason why companies were reducing their budgets on DEI, if not outright destroying them, in late 2022? Can you think of any reason why that might be? Aside from just sort of shrugging your shoulders and just wondering, I guess companies just been pulling back. All right, one of the last few remaining chief diversity officers, yes, because Google can sustain any legal challenges. They're not at risk of losing money. So, but anyway, yes.
That's really heading a major company.
Yeah. Even though she's of a type of person that supposedly can't reach any kind of power or influence or get a seat at the table, I was told earlier.
But I think that many of us might be concerned about, is this a fad? Are we going to have to change language now? We're only talking about ESG now.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it just came out today that JP Morgan is removing itself from its ESG connections, along with a couple other major names that I suddenly forget because I just read the article earlier. It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, let's see where ESG is in a year. Oh, boy.
Only talking about terms in a certain kind of way because now all of the language we learned in the last 2 years is somehow deemed offensive?
No, not offensive. No, not offensive. Legally dangerous. That's what it is. It is legally dangerous. After the affirmative action decision, basing any kind of racial discrimination in an organization under Title VII or Title VI, if you're basing it around an argument for diversity, you are risking illegality. You're risking legal challenge on federal grounds, potentially. That's the calculus. That's why the lawyers for all these major companies, Google included, were running around like chickens with their heads cut off last fall. Sorry, not this last fall. Sorry, the fall of 2022, pardon me. The fall of 2022, after the oral arguments before the Supreme Court by the lawyers for the colleges in the affirmative action case were put on the air, when you heard them and you heard the court's reaction to their arguments, the lawyers in this country and in all the major corporations doing DEI initiatives saw the writing on the wall. Whether the court decided to narrow the scope of affirmative action or destroy it outright, there was going to become a reckoning if moves were not made. So that's why the language has changed. That's why companies, most companies, except for those that can afford the liability, most companies have had to rear back, pull back, change their language, reduce the footprint of their DEI programs, delete web pages outright, and so on. That's why. It's not offense. It's protecting the bottom line.
So maybe you can paint a picture of hope in some cases.
I was just thinking that. So let me interject with some hope.
Yeah.
Okay, give me some hope. Up with hope, down with dope.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing today,
Yes.
I don't lose heart. I do have hope. I mean, my parents, I told you, marched in the 1960s with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and the contrast between King's values and the values of DEI are so oceans apart from one another fundamentally. It's interesting you keep mentioning that.
And so we've seen this in history before. One of the things that we've normalized that we're not going to go back from.
Wait. You wouldn't be equating the kind of initiatives and ideology you're pushing on the same level with the civil rights movement of the 60s, are you? Of course you are.
We talk openly about race in the workplace. I mean,
Why? What does race mean to you in the workplace?
you think about particularly Black and brown communities.
Of course. I mean, we wouldn't want to be not inclusive.
Are either hyper visible or invisible. And in between that, it's a whole lot of stress.
Hyper visible or invisible? Wait, you can't be either of those. You can't be both of those things the same. What? Okay, well, I mean, I suppose it was inevitable.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
Okay. The card has been circled. Proceed.
And so what we're talking about is how do we normalize Black and brown communities in the context? And that's what we've done following the murder of George Floyd. I think.
How? By what mechanism or mechanisms have you attempted to achieve this in the company? What did you do? What have you done specifically? These high-minded ideals are one thing, but it really depends on what you have been doing to achieve it. Why won't you get specific? Or, fingers crossed, knock Formica, will you start telling us exactly what Google has been doing?
That's also why we've seen some of the pushback, but we're not going to go back.
You're not going to go back. Okay, so you're doubling down. Okay, so I wasn't sure where Google was going. I thought maybe they were starting to try to soften the language, change, reframe everything. I guess Google's just doubling down, but they're trying to be very, I don't know, diplomatic about it, very righteous about it, I suppose.
To where we are. I have a lot of hope with Gen X, the way that, they have forced a demand for how we interact.
Do they still publish Gen X? Or did you ever see the Generation X TV movie back in the 90s with Matt Frewer as the villain? Why am I thinking of 90s X-Men stuff today? I don't know.
What they want, how they show up. And we're really leaning into that.
How?
And so I want to make sure that we don't operate out of fear and that we don't retract.
Retract what? What are you doing to achieve these goals? If you're so proud of them, if you're so dedicated to them, give us a success story or detail what you are doing, how you're investing these billions of dollars. And what are exactly the 8 pillars of your whole initiative between now and 2025? Tell us. I really want to know.
That we stand strong, and Google is standing strong and unapologetic.
Really? Okay, then tell us what you're doing.
About the commitment we make. And we're able to do that, and I'm able to sit in my role because we have an incredible CEO with Sundar Pichai who
you're able to sit where you are because Google does not fear legal retribution or cost in the long run. And obviously, as you've told us, Google is an activist company. So they can't get rid of a DEI position. They can't get rid of their chief diversity officer. It would look really bad. Now, tell us again about Google's initiatives to 2025 and what your scorecard is on that so far.
really gets it, understands it, and it's a company imperative. So we have racial equity goals, but we also have company-wide goals as well.
Name them.
And our CEO meets with our HBCU President's Council as well. And
I'm just going to be repeating myself.
Spends and pours time there. And so these are the types of things that we have to hold on to, but they're also the things that we have to push for.
Like what? What are you... I get so frustrated. And those of you that have watched the series for a while now, it's like, okay, you've made your pitch. Now get into the details. Specify what is it you're doing? How are you doing it? What is the problem? And what solution have you concocted to try to address it? Okay, we've gone over, quote unquote, the problem in as abstract of terms as we can go so far. But you are a company. You've talked about having pillars and goals and having a timeline and everything else. Tell us what you are doing.
And to continue to demand fairness and respect and dignity, which go hand in hand.
Respect is earned. But anyway.
With equity and diversity and inclusion.
No, they're really not.
And there's a lot of talk now about belonging.
No, okay. Belonging has been brought up in relation to DEI for years now. I've been arguing they should call it DEBI, call it Debbie, and have a cute little cartoon mascot to represent the whole process. There's not talk now about belonging. It's been going on for years, and I have plenty of evidence of that. But okay, it's new to you, and
I think we should hit this head on. Yeah. I believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion is insufficient without belonging.
Oh, so everybody else been doing DEI all these years, have been doing it wrong. Suddenly Google has the revelation, do they? Okay. So your entire job title and everything prior to this moment, I guess, you were doing it wrong. Now we're going to get it right with belonging. Okay, define belonging.
Insufficient without recognizing that everybody, the science of belonging says that people have to feel rewarded, seen, recognized, and valued.
On the basis of what? Because so far, if I'm not an attendee of an HBCU, I apparently am not valued, recognized, or seen. So...
in order to feel like they belong.
Feel like they belong. Try to avoid that imposter syndrome.
And so I think we see this added on.
Yes, it is an add-on. All of the other words have been add-ons. In fact, equity was an add-on. D and I wasn't enough. Then they had to add equity. Diversity and inclusion doesn't work without equity. Oh, but then it was diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't work without justice. Oh, but then diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't work without accessibility. Oh, but then diversity, equity, inclusion doesn't work without belonging, and on and on and on. You can keep tacking on more and more words and concepts to try to dilute the original sin of the entire thing. But you're always stuck with that diversity part. You're always stuck with that discrimination part.
And so these are the types of competencies and capabilities
What?
that are here to stay,
What?
even though we get pushback. But pushback means
What?
there's progress happening, and the research shows that there's progress happening.
Yeah.
What?
A little discomfort is good for all of us, right? A little discomfort is good for the soul. Anybody been uncomfortable?
I voluntarily watch TED and TEDx talks on a weekly basis. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Major growth spurts happening around here.
Oh, are we really developing as a result of this conversation that tells us nothing? Oh, if you say so.
I love how you talk about, or you brought in that concept of belonging.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, she really did. Boy, nobody was talking about belonging prior to this sit down. I tell you what.
And also highlighted the different requirements of generations.
What?
I think, I'm considered a geriatric millennial. Is anyone else here a geriatric millennial?
I am, in fact, not. I'm Gen X.
Yes, shout out. Yes.
Yes, Queen.
I'm Gen X, so we're my Gen X people.
I'm right here, and I'm consistently horrified.
Yes. Kids of the 90s. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, because we remember before there was internet, right? And
Oh boy, howdy do I.
Yeah.
okay, all right, just making sure I have family in the room here. But I love that our generation started to ask for more.
Yeah, boy howdy did they ever, because they felt entitled to it. And I wonder whose fault that was.
Yes.
More balance,
Yes.
more recognition, more sustainability, more
More. Me, my.
consciousness around how we show up in the world and society
Oh.
as well as on the planet. And I think you referenced as well Gen Z. Gen Z asking for, Gen Z is bold. Gen Z, shout out.
Oh, bold. Is that the word to describe Gen Z? That's one way to put it.
I love it. I love it. Maybe y'all will help me put some stuff on TikTok later today. So just
Oh, please, won't you? Yeah, feed that Chinese data farm.
catch me backstage, okay?
Yeah.
Um,
Cash me outside.
but that belonging component
Yes.
is almost it's a force multiple with
Multiplier.
Gen Z. It is, I'm gonna show up and
It's
be
a
all who I am.
requirement.
Yeah.
It's not an entitlement.
It's a requirement, not an entitlement? What is? You haven't even defined your terms. What do you mean by belonging in the context of DEI and the workplace? I don't know why I bother asking, save for the fact that it's a convenient pause break kind of thing, but still, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
When I grew up, my parents raised me to, I'm first generation, my brother and I, first generation college, I'm first generation corporate America.
Wow. And so what?
And we were taught
Yeah.
to be better, faster, smarter, but to compete at average. That
Oh, I thought we were going into a Daft Punk song there for a second.
never sat right with me. But I was taught to fit in, not add in. Gen Z is saying, here's where I add in. And this is what we have to do as
What?
corporations and organizations. It's not about who fits into the culture. It's what's missing in the culture and who adds in the culture.
Yes.
What?
What?
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Right?
I just can't even. I can't even. Yes. Snappy.
That's an amazing point.
Yes.
And I love
It is an amazing point. The point needs to go into the pencil sharpener because it kind of can't even pierce butter. That point.
that you talked about the belonging because
What? Love that you talked about am I just gonna have to keep hitting that WTF button, hit the Whopper button over and over again? Come on.
it's less of the quota of diversity, right? It's more than just I'm a data point that potentially represents something.
It is? How?
Much broader than that.
Is it? How?
It's
so
much
broad.
broader than
Yeah.
that.
It's much broader than it's much broader than. If you keep saying it over and over again, it doesn't make it true. How? You guys are talking about representation. You talked about percentages. You talked about goals with a timeline. How is belonging not simply checking a box and filling a percentile? How? What is belonging?
I mean, if in talking about culture ad, we've trained over 10,000 managers at Google on how to interview for additive skills, not just fitting in, because that's a mindset shift.
Additive skills, not fitting in. Do you mean to tell me that you interview potential employees on their skill sets? Well, sure and begorra, what an idea. It's almost up there with the revelation of belonging related as to DEI. I'm getting a kind of, abstract migraine from this.
And change management that we have to do on our side, from a corporate America side, to ensure that we're taking full advantage of this incredible talent that's in the world.
And so
this is the Seinfeld of discussions on a TED stage. It is a discussion about nothing. It's words, platitudes, and pablum. That's all. I guess I shouldn't have expected anything else at this point, but I don't know. Hope springs eternal, I suppose.
So just as a closing, what is your advice to other leaders that are struggling to figure out how do we create this new culture? How do we still prioritize what diversity looks like, what belonging looks like?
Yes. Tell us about what it all looks like.
And continue to even just measure the progress as we go along.
Yes. Tell us, how do you measure the progress? Tell us of the mathematics involved in measuring the progress of the racial reckoning.
My advice is to recognize what we're talking about are universal solutions.
Universal solutions? Is Jean-Claude Van Damme going to come along and be that universal solution?
That are common to humanity.
Like?
But we have to recognize that there are communities within the universe.
Well, like the Gamorreans?
That are situated differently.
Situated differently. So, what were they called? I suddenly forget. There's so many alien races in the universe I could come up with. How about, the Talaxians? Was it the Talaxians? It might have been the Talaxians.
And require different treatment to take full advantage.
So like when you meet a Klingon for the first time, you should challenge him to a Batleth duel, that kind of thing?
This is a basic right and a basic privilege.
Or like, rubbing the ears of a Ferengi. I guess that's kind of a bit too intimate.
And if we could all, as leaders, stand and take stock of that and lift as we climb and ensure we're bringing everybody along, we will reach the culture that we aspire to.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That is incredible. It is. It is a high question of credibility. You're correct.
Thank you. Well, we see why you are such an amazing boss.
I think that's a good place to end it right there. Yeah, we see why you're such an amazing. Okay, well, we got 20 more seconds.
Thank you.
We get to witness it live.
Yeah, no, if that performance constitutes our primary speaker's job skills, then it's incredible.
This is incredible.
It was incredible.
Melanie, thank you so much for joining us here on the stage today at TED Women.
Was this an entire? This must have been an entire event.
Thank you for everyone here as well.
Unless you're a man, because you opened this up by thanking all the women.
And thank you to the HBCU students.
Of course, because we knew who's most important and why.
Of course! Of course!
Yeah, all right.
Who are also in the room representing. Really exciting.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Wow, that was uninformative in the sense of I didn't get any details, but also informative that Google really wants to dance around the details of their own commitments and processes. I mean, we got a little bit more specificity in the last panel discussion because they had 4 different women on who each represented a different department or some group in Google and talked, or Google Cloud, I think it was. And at least in each of their cases, they gave some variance of perspective or examples, even if they didn't make any sense or seemed completely comical. But in this one, no, it's just nothing. Nothing, just big words, pipe dream ideas, clouds in the sky, nothing. But when they did get specific, what did they get specific about? Race. Race. I'm not shocked by it, but I didn't know where they were going to go with it. But since they didn't give us any details except for the kind of edged into almost talking about goals and percentages without getting too specific, except for that 15% thing, which 15% of what? I don't know. Anyway, that's all for other people to decipher at other times or in future episodes. Let's move on to the bingo card. Let me update it. And this is where we are at. Holy cow. I'm going to start off by going through it one more time by myself. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to them until I get to you. And then we'll see where we go. Again, bingo card A and links to the bingo cards are in the description. Collectivizes own demographic, most certainly. As a woman, as a black woman, so on and so forth. I think that was unavoidable. Systemic or institutional? Yes, in talking about the racial reckoning, all the institutions and things and making an impact and so on and so forth. Both, and Google itself as an institution, as a corporate entity, having to make moves to do this, that, and the other. I think I'm in safe territory.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
We have our first bingo. Moving on down through the card. Plays victim. I don't recall she ever gave us an example where she personally was a victim of anything. She mentioned her parents and upbringing quite a bit. I don't remember there being a victim. And again, it can't really be by implication. It has to be like she used herself or somehow declared that she was, mistreated in some way. So can't really, unless somebody thinks of something otherwise. Microaggression or unconscious bias. Not mentioned explicitly. Yeah, I don't think so. Nothing comes to mind. Privilege. Never said the word. They kind of avoided talking about any actual, racial conflicts. They talked about specific races and talked about the racial reckoning, but I don't know if privilege came up. Patriarchy. No. Weightless example. Examples. What examples did we get? I mean, they used this phrase, for example, a couple of times. Actually, almost every time they said, for example, it didn't actually explain anything about anything. So, yeah, I'm going to circle that one. Feminism. Well, certainly because it's a TEDx women's event, specified and glorified all the women at the beginning of the deal, and so on and so forth, and making opportunities for black women and so on and so forth. So, sure.
Bingo.
What? Bingo! Yeah! Of course! Of course!
All right, moving on. White supremacy. I mean, if I was really generous, I could say just by association, bringing up the civil rights movement. but I don't know if I'm quite that generous because it really wasn't either explicitly said or it was even a main part of the presentation. So I'm open to arguments, but I don't think so. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Well, regardless of what our primary speaker might have wanted to think otherwise or say otherwise, belonging in relation to DEI was not a new buzzword. So can't do that one. Mind reading or assumes motives? Trying to think. Was there an instance of that in the course of this? There was a lot of filler talk. Mind reading or assumes motives. I'm sure there was something in there, but I'm blanking right now, so I'm going to move on. Anecdote that probably never happened. Anecdote that probably never happened. Well, George Floyd died. The pandemic did happen. Not sure about that one. And lastly, leaves out vital context. Boy, howdy, did they ever. How many times did I ask, how are you doing this? What are you doing? Explain. Give us details. On and on and on. All right, so there's the bingo card as I have it. 2 bingos so far, perhaps more on the way. If you have an argument for it, please let me know in the chat. Helps if you tag me in your comment. I will scroll up a bit in case I missed anything. Let's see. Roger Reynolds says, again, both of these women have no idea what they're talking about. They just give us other ass pats and agree. I don't believe that's true. I believe they know exactly what they're talking about. I think they are couching their language and avoiding specificity intentionally. I do not believe they have no idea what it is they're involved with. And with that benefit of the doubt being extended, it says even more to me that they didn't get specific. But that's usually the case with these things. Moving on. Yvonne Solomon, we have to recognize there are communities within the universe that are situated differently and require different treatment to take full advantage. That's a flowery way of saying people should be treated differently based on the color of their skin. Yes. Yes, we have to look upon people on the basis of the demographic they fall into and give them a special consideration or consider them to be in some particular position or quality of life or something else simply on the basis of what demographic they fall into. Absent any consideration of their individuality, personal merits, situation, circumstances, or otherwise. No, we already know. We don't have to think too hard. We already know. Yeah, that's very, very. Thank you again, Alan Thaler, for the good job, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat.
Wow-wee! Wow! Wow!
Oh, there's a drunken uncle, Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. All right, let's see. Advocast Diaboli, Scribelight. They were mind reading the people who push back on them, assuming they were motivated by impure desire. That's right. That's right. She talked about the pushback in sort of nebulous terms of morality without even entertaining for a moment legality and or financial considerations of if you're going to invest this much money into. I mean, there's 2 things working at that time. And there was actually an interesting stream I did one time where we had a round table of DEI advocates and or consultants. It was actually one of the most illuminating such conversations I'd ever watched because one of the guys on the panel, he got specific when he was asked what he's done to further DEI. He named the company and the CEO that he worked for and was hired to blatantly discriminate in hiring as a consultant, as a vendor for that company. It was something else. And one of the things they kept talking about was like, oh yeah, they keep cutting the budgets and cutting the budgets. And like, yeah, because it's not returning a profit. None of the investment into DEI is actually showing up again on the bottom line. It seems like, except for Google, who can afford not to, no one else, right, seems to understand this is still a business. You can try to stand on some kind of moral virtue signaling, but you're doing it with dollars that will not be renewed because DEI does not bring back a profit. So anyway, that's a long way of saying you're correct. Mind reading assumes motives. Circling that one on the board. Let me update the card. And also moving on. Oh, that was Alan Thaler again. Thank you, Alan. Kieverdam, thank you so much. She said privilege. Did she? Did she? Is that true? I don't not believe you. I just want to make sure because I usually when I hear the word privilege, I sort of jump at it. Did I miss it? I must have missed it. Was it when she was talking about the Gen Z, Gen X, millennials? Is that it? Am I just verify that toward the end? Did she? Okay. Well, I trust Keeverdam. In Keeverdam, I trust. So I'm going to circle privilege on the board. So circling that one, let me update the card. Okay, there we are. All right. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? Advocatus again. Also, I think the entire purpose of this talk being specifically about women kind of merits patriarchy being circled. No, they didn't bring up men as a part of the talk. They did focus exclusively on women and benefiting women most of the time. So that I'm fine circling feminism for, but the unmentioned implication doesn't count. It has to be part of the talk. I'm trying to stick to that because I don't want to circle squares for things that were not there in any way, shape, or form. She didn't bring up men. They didn't complain about men. They didn't talk about, male to female disparities or anything. They just talked mostly about benefiting women. So needed something else, needed something more specific. If you've got a counter argument, I'm happy to hear it, but otherwise. Let's see. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? Eat it can hope for its avoid lawsuits. It just likely cause them under the racial feminist model. Eat it? Okay, maybe that was spell check or something, throwing it off. I'm not quite sure. I'll assume you were saying something coherent, Luna. Let's see. Any other arguments, guys? Let's see. Advocatus again. Describe. They did talk about male to female disparities in positions of power. Well, not in a substantive irate bear way, unfortunately. I don't think there wasn't enough there to do it. I know, and it's also, this is a bingo square, so the standards are a little higher. They're a little higher. Zero the Hero says, hi, Scribe. Hi, Zero the Hero 909. How's it going? Let's see. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other arguments. I'll give it another second or two here as I start to wrap up. So first and foremost, before I forget, let's talk about the Discord server. If you'd like to join the Discord server, well, I have a Discord server, and I'm putting a link to that in the chat now. If you'd like to join the Discord server, just click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me and my moderators that you actually watched the stream and have thus joined. How about thus earned the right, the title, the privilege, whatever, to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is belonging, because we just thought of it today, obviously. So just say, hello, belonging, and I'll know that you watched the show and can join the Discord server. Also, programming note, fingers crossed, knock Formica on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Ranting Monkey's channel. Granted, he is feeling up to it because last week he was kind of under the weather. Ranting Monkey and I will be starting a new series that's going to go back and forth between our channels, as far as I understand it, where we review one by one every episode of, so far, the 2 seasons of Reacher on Amazon Prime. It's a show that we're going to call Reacher Rounds. Do you get it? I hope you do. Anyway, again, that's going to be on Ranting Monkey's channel Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Now, be sure to watch my Twitter, or X, because all things considered, time zones and health concerns and everything else, that could change. I'll let you know one way or the other, both on X and on the Discord server. Also, there will be no Sunday stream this weekend, as I'll be out of town visiting my parents specifically to celebrate Mama Scribe's birthday. So I'll be gone Sunday, won't be a Sunday stream. I did a bonus TEDx episode earlier this week, as a supplement to last Sunday's stream to make up for that. So watch that if you're looking for some more TED excellence in your life, because I am YouTube's premier TED excellence commentator. I think I can say that now. I can legitimately put that on my channel. What have I done with my life? Anyway, everyone, thank you guys so much for joining me on this Thursday evening for this TEDx from Google. We have more rhetoric from Google to keep in mind as things proceed in the future and potential lawsuits abound. Everyone, again, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very little to do. Everybody that came over from Midnight's Edge or Midnight's Edge After Dark in the raid, if you're still here, I applaud your stamina and I appreciate your patronage otherwise. So thank you for showing up for that. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the GoFundMes at the top of the chat box, and please take a look at those when you have the chance. Thank you so much, guys, for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. With that, hope you all have a good rest of your Thursday, Friday ahead of you, weekend as well. If you have an extra day this weekend because of the holiday, congratulations. If you don't, I hope your Monday is without too much stress. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.